She was still holding the wedding invitation when her knees hit the floor. Not her own wedding invitation. She had never had one of those. This one had a gold embossed border, thick, expensive paper, the kind that whispers money before you even read the words. 2 names printed in elegant cursive right at the center of the card. Emeka Okafor and Ruth Adeze Nwosu. Ruth, her sister. And Emeka, the man Grace had loved for 6 years.
Keep this, 30,000. And, my love, we can manage it for some time.
The man she had followed to Lagos with nothing but 30,000 naira and faith.
I want to do double shift today. I need to raise some money for my husband.
The man who had worked double shifts for at a pharmacy in Yaba, standing on swollen feet, taking buses home at midnight so that his dream could breathe while hers waited. The man who had held her face in his 2 hands in their small apartment in Mushin and looked at her like she was the answer to a question he had been asking his whole life.
The man who said, "Grace, you are the only woman I will ever need." That same man. She read the names again, then her body. This body that had carried so much for so long just gave. She did not scream. She did not break anything. She sat down on the floor of that one room. Listen to me. You cannot understand what this moment cost this woman unless you first understand everything she had already paid. So let me take you back. Let me show you who Grace Nwosu was before Lagos, before Emeka, before the betrayal that was being planned in her own home while she was out working to keep that home standing. Grace Nwosu was the firstborn daughter of the Nwosu family, raised in a modest compound of Independence Layout in Enugu. 3 daughters in that house, and from the time Grace was old enough to read a room, she understood something that nobody ever said out loud, but that everybody felt in their bones. She was the one the family had quietly stopped expecting great things from. Not with cruelty, you have to understand that. It was never cruelty. It was just the quiet, honest arithmetic of a family that had 3 daughters and distributed its hope unevenly without even knowing it. Her sister Ruth, 2 years younger, had their mother's complexion. Warm, luminous, the kind of skin that caught light and held it like it belonged there. When Ruth walked into a room, people paused. Strangers smiled before she opened her mouth. Men forgot what they were saying. Women instinctively straightened their backs. Her younger sister Joy, 5 years younger, had a smile that rearranged the atmosphere of whatever space she entered. Grace had steady hands. She could fix things. A broken appliance, a failing grade, a family argument that was about to go too far. Their home of Independence Layout was proper but humble. A compound with a leaking roof that their father kept promising to fix. A small parlor with chairs that had seen better years. Their father worked in local government. Their mother sold fabric at Ogui Market 3 days a week. It was not a rich home, but it was a full one. Grace grew up understanding her place in it. She met Emeka Okafor when she was 23 years old. He came to their compound one Saturday afternoon to see her father about a business matter, a supply contract of some kind. Grace never fully understood the details. What she understood was that he sat in their front parlor for 45 minutes waiting. And in those 45 minutes, while Ruth was upstairs and Joy was outside, Emeka spoke to Grace. Not past her, not at her, to her. He asked what she was reading. She told him, a book on pharmaceutical management she had borrowed from a colleague. He leaned forward, genuinely curious, and asked her opinion on it. She gave it, fully, without shrinking, without the usual habit she had of making her thoughts smaller so they would fit more comfortably in a room. When her father finally came downstairs, Emeka stood to greet him. But before he followed her father to the other room, he turned back to Grace and said, "You are interesting. I genuinely do not meet many interesting people." That was the whole thing. That was all of it. You need to understand. You really need to understand what those words did to a woman who had spent 23 years being the background in her own family story. He did not say she was beautiful. He did not say she was stunning or fine or any of the words men threw carelessly at Ruth. He said she was interesting. And somehow, that was the word that found the exact locked place in her chest and opened it. She fell. Completely, immediately, and she never fully got back up.
They started slowly. Conversations at the compound gate when he came to visit her father. Then phone calls that started at 7 and ended past midnight without either of them noticing. Then he took her to a small restaurant near Ogui Road, and they talked for 4 straight hours without once checking the time. Emeka was building a logistics business. Still small, still finding its feet, but he spoke about it with the kind of quiet conviction that made you want to bet everything you had on him. He had a plan, he had a vision, he just needed time and support and someone who believed. Grace believed. Idondu, she believed before he even finished explaining. When he told her he needed to relocate to Lagos to grow the business properly, she did not hesitate, did not pause, did not negotiate. Her mother was horrified, sat her down in the kitchen and looked at her with the particular fear of a woman who has seen other women make this kind of mistake. "Grace, you want to pack your things and follow this man to Lagos, just like that? What about your pharmacy job here? What about your own future?" Grace looked at her mother calmly and said, "He is my future, Mama." She packed 2 bags. She withdrew her savings, 30,000 naira, every kobo she had managed to gather, and she followed Emeka Okafor to Lagos. They moved into a single room in Mushin. No parlor, no dining table, a hot plate for cooking, a bathroom they shared with 4 other tenants at the end of the corridor. The window looked out onto a concrete wall, and Grace, this woman who had grown up in a proper compound in Enugu, who had a stable pharmacy job, who had options she was now folding away quietly. Grace tied her head wrap, rolled up her sleeves, and made that room a home. She hung a small curtain she sewed herself. She organized their things with the careful precision of a woman who understood that dignity does not require space, only intention. She put a small vase on the windowsill, plastic flowers because real ones cost money they did not have, but they were there, color in a concrete room. This is who Grace Nwosu was. You need to hold this image, hold it tight, because what comes later will try to make you forget it.
What nobody tells you about loving someone who is still becoming is this: you pour yourself in. Every single day, quietly, without announcement, you pour. Your salary, your belief, your time, your energy, your patience on the days his frustration makes him distant, your encouragement on the days the business loses a contract, your body carrying exhaustion home on a bus at midnight, still finding the strength to ask him, "How was your day?" before you eat. You pour and you pour, trusting that something is growing, trusting that when it grows, when it finally breaks ground and reaches towards the sun, you will be there. She got a job at a pharmacy in Yaba. The madam was strict, the hours were long, and the buses home were always full. She stood from CMS to Mushin some nights, her feet aching, her back stiff, holding the overhead rail and watching Lagos pass in the dark outside the window. She brought her salary home every month. She managed their finances with the precision of a woman for whom survival was mathematics. She knew exactly what they could spend and what they could not, and she never confused the two. When Emeka's business struggled in the first year, lost contracts, unreliable partners, months where they ate gari more than rice, Grace said nothing discouraging, not one word. She just recalculated, stretched the money further, smiled at him across that small room like they were living exactly the life they had planned. Second year, the business found a small footing, a steady client, a reliable driver, a small profit. She celebrated with him over rice and stew she cooked on that hot plate, and she laughed and clinked her plastic cup against his like they were toasting with champagne at Echo Hotel. Third year, his first real major contract came through. A company in Victoria Island, consistent work, good money, the beginning of something real. He came home that evening with a bottle of Fanta. He could not yet afford champagne, and he sat across from her, and he held her face in his two hands, and he said, with his voice catching just a little, "Grace, you stayed. Through all of it. Do you understand what that means to me? You stayed." She smiled. She covered his hands with hers. "Where else would I go?" This moment. I need you to hold this moment in your chest. Feel the weight of it, because this is the last completely clean moment in this entire story. Everything after this has a shadow in it.
Ruth arrived in Lagos on a Thursday in November. She called Grace 2 days before. She needed a break, she said. Enugu was suffocating her. Just a few weeks, maybe 3, maybe 4, she would stay with Grace and Emeka, help around the house, sort her stuff out. Would that be okay? Grace said yes before Ruth finished asking. Because that is who Grace was. You do not say no to your blood. You do not make your sister feel unwelcome. Not when you are raised in the same compound, slept in the same bedroom for 18 years. Come, Grace told her. This is your home too. Ruth came with 2 large suitcases and a carry-on bag. She wore a fitted burgundy dress when she stepped out of the taxi, her skin glowing, her hair freshly done. She looked like she was arriving at a hotel, not a single room in Mushin. She hugged Grace at the door, long, warm. "I missed you," she said into Grace's shoulder. "I missed you too," Grace said, and she meant it. Emeka helped carry the suitcases in. He greeted Ruth the way you greet your partner's sibling, warmly, properly, with the easy comfort of someone who has heard about a person for years. That first evening, they ate together. Grace cooked jollof rice, fried plantain, chicken. They sat in that small room around the low table, and they talked and laughed, and it felt genuinely like family. Grace went to sleep that night feeling full. She should have paid more attention to what she felt the next morning. You see, the thing about a woman who knows how to use what she has is this. She never announces it. She does not walk in declaring anything. She just begins, slowly, naturally, like something that was always supposed to be there. Within the first week, Grace started noticing things, small things, individually meaningless, together something she could not yet name. The way Ruth laughed at Emeka's jokes, not politely, fully, throwing her head back, touching her own collarbone, making him feel funnier than he was. Grace knew Emeka's jokes. They were fine. They were not that funny. The way Ruth asked about his business, sitting forward, her eyes focused, asking follow-up questions, the kind of focused attention that makes a man feel like the most important person in the room. Grace had given him that attention for 6 years. Seeing it performed by someone else so accurately made her stomach move in a way she could not explain. The way Ruth was always in whatever room Emeka was in. Always. Grace noticed, but she said nothing. Because what do you say? You cannot accuse your sister of laughter. You cannot put a case together from eye contact and question asking. And more than that, this was Ruth, her blood, the girl she had shared a room with for 18 years. The possibility that Ruth would do something intentional, something calculated in her own home, she could not hold that thought. It felt like a betrayal just to think it. So she pushed it down. She went to work. She came home. She cooked. She observed. She said nothing. 3 weeks into Ruth's visit, Grace worked a double shift. She left the house at 6:30 in the morning. She did not get back until after 10 at night. Her feet were finished. Her back was a low, steady ache. She climbed the stairs to their floor slowly, one hand on the wall, her pharmacy bag hanging from her shoulder like it was filled with stones. She heard the laughter before she reached the door. Ruth's laughter first, light, effortless, the laugh of someone who has not been on their feet for 16 hours. And then Emeka's laugh, low and warm and familiar. Too familiar. The laugh she knew from 6 years of lying beside him in the dark. The laugh he gave when he was completely relaxed, completely comfortable, completely himself. Grace stopped outside the door, just for a moment. One moment. She stood there, in that corridor, the fluorescent light above her flickering slightly, someone's generator humming 3 floors below, and she listened to the 2 people she loved most in the world laughing together behind a closed door. Something moved in her chest, something cold and formless that she could not name and was not ready to name. She pushed the door open. They were at the small table, playing cards, a pot of indomie on the hot plate, steam still rising. Ruth's cards face down on the table, Emeka leaning back in his chair. They both looked up when she entered. Normal faces, easy faces, nothing hidden that she could point to. "Grace," Ruth said, already standing. "Sit down, you look exhausted. I made food, come and eat." Emeka was already pulling her chair out. "You okay? How was the shift?" She sat, she ate. She watched them both from behind her food. And she told herself, in the quiet, reasonable voice she used when she was managing herself, "You are tired. You are reading things into nothing. This is your sister. This is your man. You are safe here." She believed it. She chose to believe it. And that choice, that love, that trust is what cost her everything.
Ruth left 6 weeks after she arrived. Back to Enugu, she said. She had sorted herself out. She was ready to go back. Grace took the day off work to see her to the motor park. They stood at the bus, Grace holding Ruth's hand the way she used to when they were children crossing the road. "Thank you," Ruth said, "for everything, for always making space for me." "You are my sister," Grace said simply. "There will always be space." Ruth hugged her, long, tight. Then she got on the bus. She waved from the window as it pulled out. Grace waved back until the bus turned the corner and disappeared. She did not know, she could not have known, that Ruth was not going back to sort out her life in Enugu. She was going back to continue what she had started. 6 months later, Emeka began to change. Not suddenly, not dramatically. This is not that kind of story. It was the way Harmattan comes to Lagos. You do not notice it until the air is already dry and your lips are already cracked and you realize it has been this way for weeks and you simply did not mark the exact moment it began. He came home later, not by hours, just by enough. 30 minutes, an hour. Enough to be a pattern, but not enough to be an accusation.
His phone was always face down on the table now. Always. He had never done that before Ruth visited. Before Ruth visited, his phone sat screen up on whatever surface he put it on, charging cables everywhere, notifications chiming freely. Now, face down. Always. Every room. He was distracted in conversation. She would be talking and his eyes would drift. Not rudely, just away, somewhere she could not follow. He stopped reaching for her hand when they walked. One evening, his phone buzzed on the table while he was in the bathroom. Grace looked at it. The screen lit up. She could see it was a message, she could see there was a name, and she picked it up. She held it for 4 seconds. Then she put it back down, face down, exactly where it had been. Because she was Grace, and Grace believed that love without trust was not love at all, and she was not ready. She was not yet ready to know what she already knew. She put the phone down.
The call from her mother came on a Sunday morning. Grace was at the pharmacy. Extra shift. A colleague had called in sick, and Grace, as always, had said yes when asked to cover. She was behind the counter when her mother called the first time. She missed it. Her mother called again immediately, and something about the second call, the urgency of it, the refusal to wait, made Grace step outside onto the street. "Mama, what is it?" Silence. The particular silence of someone who has been rehearsing how to say something and has now forgotten all the rehearsed versions. "Mama." Grace. Her mother's voice was low, heavy, the voice of a woman delivering weight. "I need to tell you something, and I need you to be strong when I tell you." A woman walked past with a tray of tomatoes balanced on her head. A child was crying somewhere nearby. Everything completely ordinary. Everything completely unaware that Grace Nosu's world was about to end on a Sunday morning outside a pharmacy in Yaba. "Tell me, Mama."